Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mountain Lake Journal. I'm Tom Halleck. It has been another historic week in Washington, with the U.S. House voting for a second time to impeach Donald Trump over the rampage at the U.S. Capitol the president has been accused of inciting. North Country Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who voted against impeaching Mr. Trump, said this week she will continue to support the president through the end of his term next week. And she said she has no plans to resign from office, despite many calling for her to do so in the wake of her objection to the Electoral College votes of several states, even after the thousands of rioters stormed the Capitol. Over the weekend, Representative Stefanik was in Dannemora at a protest over the planned closure of Clinton Correctional's Annex. After the rally, Stefanik said protesters who demonstrated outside her offices last week are well within their rights to call for her resignation, but she believes the debate over the election results were important. The Congresswoman is one of more than 100 Republican representatives who challenged the Presidential Electoral College Vote.
I've been very clear. I condemn the violence. The vast majority of the attendees at the Washington event were peaceful, including many constituents in this district, including a gentleman from Tupper Lake that was featured in the Adirondack Daily Enterprise. I support the president. I also stand by my objections, which focused on the constitutional issues in certain states where I felt, and many millions of Americans feel, that the Constitution was usurped because unelected officials did not follow state election law. Those objections are valid and they should be discussed in a peaceful manner. They were discussed as we continue to work through the process. President-elect Biden was certified, but that debate was important for the American people to hear. But when it comes to the violence, we of course should come together to condemn those violent acts, and those individuals will be prosecuted.
You said you stand by the president. A lot of people are calling for him to resign or calling for an impeachment. If it were to come to an impeachment, where would you stand on your vote?
I oppose the Democrats' very political push to impeach the president. There are 12 days left before the inauguration. There will be an inauguration and a peaceful transfer of power on January 20th. That is the American way. And again, President-elect Biden was certified. It worked its way through the process. And I think it's important to note for viewers that every single Republican president in my lifetime, Democrats have filed objections to certain electors. That has not been covered by the media. It should be covered. It's a fact. In 1989, 2001, 2005, 2017, Democrats filed objections to every Republican president.
Twitter announced that the president's account would be suspended permanently. Facebook and Instagram have also barred him from doing anything. What do you make of those actions?
I think they're un-American, they're unconstitutional. Big tech is going to be held accountable for their unconstitutional acts. There's going to be congressional hearings. Republicans and, frankly, conservatives across America are very concerned that you have monopoly big companies who, frankly, need to be we need to have antitrust cases against these companies. They shouldn't be able to decide what Americans' voices are valid and what aren't. As I was walking in here, Pat, one of the first issues a voter brought up to me was, I am very concerned that my voice will be silenced because I have conservative viewpoints, and that is not constitutional. So I'm very concerned. I think it was a very, very bad and un-American decision by Twitter, Instagram, and those tech companies to ban not only real Donald Trump's Twitter account, but the President of the United States Twitter account.
One of the reasons why Twitter said they banned President Trump is that they were concerned that his tweets were fomenting violence. There are people worried about potential violence coming up that could occur at the Capitol. Are you scared to walk into the Capitol these days?
I am not scared to walk into the Capitol. I want to thank our Capitol police officers, and I especially want to just pray for the family of the Capitol police officer who lost his life during the horrific events. I feel safe at the Capitol. I think it's important for the American people that they see we can safely discuss issues where we have very different perspectives. We represent different parts of the country. country. So I believe we need to get back to do the people's work. I do not think we should be censoring speech and banning voices across the country.
What is your response specifically to constituents who disagree with your objections?
They have a right to those beliefs. Of course, I represent a diverse group of constituents, both geographically diverse with different, policy beliefs. They have the right to those opinions. They also have the constitutional right to speak out. Again, the vast majority of my constituents that I've heard from support looking into election security and election integrity. And yes, I believe President-elect Joe Biden, he was certified, it went through the process, but I still think moving forward, we need to have a bipartisan commission to make sure that we're strengthening our election integrity, strengthening our election security.
The Congresswoman joined members of the union representing corrections officers who held the rally outside the Clinton Annex over the weekend, calling on the state and the governor to reconsider plans to close the facility.
This should never have been announced over the holidays. Not only is it the wrong decision, but the governor should have come up here, heard directly from corrections officers and their families how much this would impact this community and this economy, which is already struggling. This region is struggling. So we are going to speak out and continue to work with the corrections officers to make sure their voices are heard in Albany.
We need to do everything we can to save Clinton Annex. And you have my word, along with other state and local officials, we will do everything we can to not lose one job in that facility and not to have people displaced.
The revolving door approach that Albany has to law enforcement recently is awful. It's awful. It's bad for our public safety. And then people forget the history. Why are these prisons here in the North Country? Because the North Country stepped up and they took them when no other communities wanted to. These are small communities now. 300 jobs it moves the needle. It does more than move the needle. It's a devastating effect to a small community in the North Country.
If the annex is closed in March, nearly 300 corrections officers will be reassigned to prisons in other parts of the state.